Time to prep for our big meeting with Asher and Grant. What's new, Luna?
Hello everyone, I am Vandalus and this is my first episode of Theory Crafting, the show where we look at video games and try to explain the unexplainable. Today, in honor of its recent 1-year anniversary, I'm going to be looking at one of my favorite games to theories about, Transistor. A few things before we start. This video will include gameplay footage and major spoilers. If you haven't played Transistor yet, I really urge you to go check it out. It's available for PlayStation 4 and PC on Steam. So, in preparation for this video, I went to the Transistor subreddit, which I'll link below, and asked the community what they want me to talk about. I had some pretty good questions, and I've had some time to think them over, and I'll be answering as many of those questions as possible. Thank you to everyone who posted a question on my thread, and I hope I don't disappoint you guys. I also want to give a big shout out and thank you to Reddit user VGXmaster who gave me a good list of questions, and also provided me with some video footage of a mod he's been working on for Transistor, which I'll work into the gameplay footage in the video. If you like what you see in the mod portion of the gameplay, I'll provide a link below to his mod if you have the PC version and you want to check it out. And now, let's get started. First, we'll be looking at Sybil. Sybil was a Camerata spy sent in to watch Red and warn the Camerata if she was a threat to their system. In the process, no pun intended, of getting close to Red, she began to actually fall in love with her. Unfortunately, all of her feelings were brushed off as she had already found love in her bodyguard, whose name's never revealed in the story, even though he's a major aspect of the game. We hear his voice throughout the game guiding us and telling us what we should do, where we should go, cheering us on, even names the enemies for us. We'll call him after his abilities named Breach. When Sybil realizes there's no hope of anything between her and Red, she becomes incredibly jealous and starts something that will change Cloudbank forever. She betrays Red. Whether or not the accusations she made to the Camerata were true or false, she convinced them that Red had to be stopped. This sets forth the events that we wake up to, so to speak, in the game. Camerata comes along and tries to kill Red using their source of power, the Transistor. They didn't completely understand it, and they didn't know what it would do if they used it like that, but they used it anyways. Unfortunately for them, Breach pushed Red aside and took the blow. The process put his essence into the Transistor, and the Camerata lost control of the Transistor itself. See, the thing about the Transistor is that the Camerata had been using it to control everything in Cloudbank. Without the Camerata controlling things, Cloudbank was overrun by rogue processes, which came out of the woodwork and began attacking everything and everyone, turning them into deformed processes as well. And the only thing that can stop these processes is the Transistor, which is now in Red's hand. And that's where the story begins. Shortly afterwards, you come across the first boss fight, Sybil, or what's left of her. You meet her on the very stage where you were attacked, and her first words show that she waited for you. She then attacks you. We would assume that she wanted to finish what she had started. After defeating her first form, though, she begs you for help. As if to imply that they, the Camerata perhaps, had only ever wanted her help. It's possible that Sybil lied and said that Red refused to help them. After her next defeat, she tells you,
Sybil!
She didn't expect Breach to be there to stop them. She feels responsible for the turn of events that led everyone here. After defeating her again, tell us exactly what it looks like. She only wanted to save Red from the Camerata, but she betrayed her instead, and the entire time the music tells us how Red feels about that now.
trace. Hello again, Sybil.
And that's the story behind Sybil. Or my take on it anyways, of course, since nothing is solid in this game, it's just a theory. Feel free to comment below what you guys think, and now on to some of the submitted questions. I'm going to start with the questions that VGX Master asked me, and while I'm reading these, I'm going to show some clips from his mod, so keep your eyes on the screen, see what you think. Alright, first question. Which is heaven, Cloud Bank or the country? So this is a good question, but I think that really depends on the viewpoint of the subject. Leaving Cloud Bank brings you to the country, but I personally think it's possible for a subject to return to Cloud Bank if they want to, because the game seems to imply that Cloud Bank is a simulation. Nobody returns after the incident with the transistor, either because they can't, the process may have locked the outside access, or because they just don't want to, because, well, they can see that Cloud Bank was being destroyed, so they wouldn't really want to come back. What is recursion, and why did Royce say, hey Red, we're not going to get away with this, are we, in recursion mode instead of breach? By definition, recursion is the process of repeating items in a self-similar way. When you finish Transistor, you begin recursion, which is kind of a new Game Plus option, with notable changes. The first line of the game,
Hey, Red. We're not gonna get away with this, are we?
is replaced by the same line, but spoken by Royce instead.
Hey, Red. We're not gonna get away with this, are we?
The process of recursion in this sense, to me, implies that it's possible to force a redo, so to say, in a worst-case scenario. Royce would have to be the one to initiate this process since he is the administrator, so he asks Red the question this time. For some reason, though, things are worse than they were before in recursion once again, showing that Royce should have taken more time to learn what he's doing before using his power however he pleases. It's not the first time he's messed something up. And this leads us into question 3. What did the Camerata do wrong? Full disclosure, I have to give VGX Master some more credit here, as he and I bounced some ideas off each other about this question. As the head of the Camerata, Royce should have been telling the rest of the team more information. He didn't learn enough, and he didn't share what he did learn. He got to the point where he felt himself a god, and nothing he does could possibly go wrong, right down to the bitter end. He didn't know what would happen when they used the transistor on Red, and if he did, he certainly didn't tell Grant, Asher, and Sybil. And now for one of my favorite questions to ask about Transistor. Who was Breach and why didn't he select? Is he from Cloud Bank? Breach is a true enigma in Transistor right down to his name. We give him an assumed name, but nobody ever says his name. Ever. In the entire script of this game, not once is his name used. This is because, besides Red and maybe Sybil, nobody knows about him. Breach didn't select, which is why his information is so sparse, even in the data logs. His log says that his choice of non-selection is a major improbability, as literally 0% of Cloud Bank citizens chose non-selection. So either his data was corrupted when he was absorbed into the transistor, or he actually doesn't exist. As far as the system is concerned, of course. Breach is what I like to think of as a rogue, an outlaw. He's completely independent of the systems and functions of Cloud Bank, because he's not from Cloud Bank. If we see the world of Cloud Bank as a simulation, Breach is a hacker who should not be there. He broke into the system for whatever reason and eventually became Red's bodyguard. And we all know what happens from there. Next question. Could anybody read Red's comments in the OBC terminals? First off, by the time you access your first OBC terminal, there's nobody left to talk to. Everyone else has been converted with the exception of Grant and Asher, and of course Royce. Royce is far too busy being God to check something as unimportant as an OBC terminal, and Grant and Asher are trying to find a solution to the problem. It may be possible that nobody can read Red's messages, and the Camerata stole more than just her voice from her, but also her ability to communicate with the outside world as a whole. Breach can read what she says because he's given Red control of the transistor and they're fused, so to speak. Why was only Red's voice processed into her trace? The attempt to steal Red's trace failed, thanks to Breach. It may have started to process her trace, but it didn't finish. Perhaps it started with what the Camerata feared the most, her voice, her influence. This is why the OVC news reports claim that Red died. Alright, and we got a couple more questions from a couple more users on Reddit. Nick's ICF from Reddit asked why there are bodies in the containers in the last boss fight. Why is one empty, and why does one glow more than the others? This is a good question, but at the same time I'm kind of at a loss. In my playthroughs I didn't notice any empty containers, nor did I notice one glowing more than the others, but I can theorize, and that's what I'm here to do. The containers in the last boss fight contain the traces of the people the transistor absorbed traces from. If a container is missing, it may mean you haven't obtained all the traces yet. If one is actually glowing more than the others and I missed it, and maybe Breach's traces, he's the one controlling the transistor. Thanks for the question. Zilin11 from Reddit, I might be pronouncing that wrong, and if I am, sorry, asked, how exactly does the transistor work? Does it drop the soul or essence or whatever of a human? If so, then how come you have Red's essence in it from the start of the game? The transistor absorbs the trace of its subject. The ability to paint is determined by the characteristics of the subject it absorbed. The reason you start with Crash is because the transistor had begun to absorb Red's trace before Breach interfered. It could also be because Red's the user, and her trace is connected to the transistor. Alright, and that's going to be all today, so thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe so you can catch the next videos. Once again, I am Vandalist, and this has been Theory Crafting for Transistor.
Till next time. Which I'm thinking will be pretty soon.